Across the deserts and along the banks of the life-giving Nile, there arose in ancient times whispers of a power both maternal and fierce, radiant and arcane, devoted to a goddess who transcended mortal limitations. In hushed gatherings beneath starlit skies, men and women alike knelt in reverence before the image of a regal figure crowned with a throne, her presence said to guide the living and protect the dead. This was Isis, revered in the earliest dynasties of Egypt as a guardian of family, magic, and the cosmic balance that held the world together. Over the centuries, as pharaohs gave way to conquerors, and as the civilizations around the Mediterranean Sea collided and intertwined, the worship of Isis took on new dimensions, surpassing its original borders and weaving itself into the tapestry of empires. Yet behind the public shrines, beyond the incantations offered at dawn or dusk, there endured an esoteric thread of devotion, a hidden order bound by secret oaths and clandestine rites. It was said that in these closed circles, initiates received not only the blessings of the goddess, but also her mysterious knowledge, which reached back to epics unrecorded by mortal scribes. Among these initiates, a select few believed they had uncovered the deeper essence of Isis's power, a secret that could bend the currents of history itself. From the earliest days of the Great Pyramids, through the golden age of Hellenistic syncretism, and finally into the shadowy corridors of Roman intrigue, this secret fellowship would come to be known by those who dared speak its name as the cult of Isis, holding sway in ways no single empire ever could. Long before Rome rose to dominate the known world, and even before the Persian armies marched across the Near East, the seeds of Isis's mysteries lay germinating in the silent temples of Upper Egypt. From the city of Thebes to the sacred island of Philae, worshippers erected grand monuments to honor her role as mother, wife, and protector, a figure who was both intimately present in everyday life and majestically distant in her immortal cosmic dimension. While on the surface, the rituals were open for the devout to witness, there persisted an undercurrent of rumors that deeper knowledge passed in guarded whispers from priest to priest. Some legends claimed that these priests possessed scrolls detailing rituals taught to them by none other than Thoth, the scribe of the gods, which revealed the path to transcending mortal frailty. Others said the goddess herself appeared in dreams to bestow upon chosen souls the ability to bridge the worlds of the living and the dead. At the heart of these rumors was the notion that physical reality could be shaped by those who truly understood the cosmic balance, an understanding personified by Isis. As the centuries rolled on, conflicts and alliances shifted, and pharaohs rose and fell like the ebb and flow of the Nile. Through it all, the temple guardians kept their secrets close. Some scribes ventured to record glimpses of these mystic doctrines in hieroglyphics, but it was believed that the most potent of these teachings never touched papyrus. Only a select circle of initiates, sworn to remain silent, could preserve the sanctity of that eternal flame. And so, in early ages, the cult of Isis lingered behind the veil of the official state religion, quietly consolidating its arcane knowledge in secret chambers only known to the deeply trusted. When Alexander the Great forged his empire, and the old world of Egypt encountered the Macedonian and Greek realms, the worship of Isis underwent a subtle metamorphosis. Temples that once carried exclusively Egyptian symbols began incorporating Hellenistic influences, melding the visual language of the Greek gods with the powerful mythology surrounding Isis, her consort Osiris, and her son Horus. Through this fusion, the cult's public face grew in prominence. Statue by statue, vow by vow, more men and women across the eastern Mediterranean came to revere Isis as universal mother and protector. Meanwhile, the private order that had guarded her hidden truths developed new ways to conceal itself, adopting Greek scripts and cryptic allegories. Scholars who studied in the Grand Library of Alexandria might have encountered volumes that hinted at the goddess's hidden teachings, but few recognized these cryptic allusions for what they truly were. Those who did suspect that the cult of Isis possessed a wellspring of subterranean knowledge often found their investigations inexplicably thwarted, as if by an invisible hand. And so the centuries proceeded, carrying the worship of Isis beyond the borders of Egypt itself, into the isles of the Aegean Sea, up through the Ionian coast, and toward the heartland of emerging imperial powers. Always, the cult's secretive elite walked a tightrope between overt devotion and covert influence, forging alliances not with swords, but with arcane whispers that traveled from palace corridor to secret grotto. Then came the rise of Rome. What began as a cluster of villages along the Tiber River transformed, through conquest and cunning, into the mightiest empire the world had ever seen. Legions marched across continents, carrying with them the gods and cults they encountered. Among these was the worship of Isis, which found receptive hearts among the Roman populace, particularly among women who saw in the Egyptian goddess a figure of nurturing hope and magical succor. By the time of Julius Caesar's alliances with Cleopatra in the final days of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the name of Isis was on the lips of senators and aristocrats alike. Tales spread that Cleopatra, last sovereign of an Egypt descending from Alexander's general Ptolemy, was herself an initiate of the deeper mysteries of Isis, guided by an inner circle that shaped her vision for a restored empire. Some chroniclers claimed that this circle orchestrated secret communications with sympathetic factions in Rome, courting powerful figures who might help place Cleopatra on equal footing with Caesar. Though official histories dismissed such notions as rumor, the swirl of events that followed, the death of Caesar, the power struggle that brought Octavian to supremacy, Cleopatra's tragic end, hint at the possibility that the cult's hidden hand was deeply entwined in these momentous happenings. Yet it was under the sprawling Pax Romana that the cult of Isis solidified a foothold in nearly every corner of the empire. In port cities along the Mediterranean, shrines to Isis attracted pilgrims from Africa, Asia, and Europe. The goddess's protective embrace seemed to unite peoples of diverse tongues and regions, all seeking guidance in a harsh and uncertain world. As the public worship gained acceptance, though it occasionally faced bans under certain emperors, the secret order within the cult thrived in the shadows. Intrigues at the imperial court sometimes pointed to suspicious ties. The Emperor Tiberius, known for his paranoia, allegedly ordered the destruction of Isis temples in Rome after hearing rumors that certain patricians were employing Egyptian sorcery to manipulate the destiny of the empire. Later, under the reign of Domitian, stories circulated of clandestine ceremonies in the dead of night, where incense smoke curled around figures chanting in archaic languages long lost to normal Roman ears. Perhaps these tales were exaggerated. Perhaps they were the fruit of political rivalries, but to those initiated in the mysteries, they were simply the faint echo of a power that never truly left Egypt, but only wore the garments of each new era. As the empire's fortune shifted and Rome faced barbarian invasions, economic turbulence, and internal corruption, many turned to alternative spiritual paths for hope. Christianity began its meteoric rise, challenging the older polytheistic cults across the empire. In some accounts, the cult of Isis chose a strategy of assimilation, embedding fragments of their symbolism into newly Christianized practices. Ancient murals and scattered ruins hint at an intertwining of Marian devotion with the iconography of Isis, cradling the infant Horus. But the deeper sect, that unwavering chain of transmission from priest to initiate, did not vanish. In an age where Christianity became the official religion, one might assume that the old gods were wiped from memory. Yet the whisper persists that far from disappearing, the cult of Isis merely adjusted its masks. Through secret gatherings behind the walls of villas in southern Italy, in remote enclaves along the Danube, or hidden among the merchant classes of Alexandria, the initiates continued to pass on their guarded knowledge. Their members, it is said, included not only Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans, but also men from Gaul and Germania, women of noble birth from Syria and Cappadocia, and travelers who carried the flame of devotion northward across the seas into the far reaches of Britannia and beyond. With the collapse of the Western Roman Empire came a period often painted in bleak tones by later chroniclers. But from the vantage of the cult of Isis, this epoch presented a crucible of transformation. In the Eastern Roman Empire, the seat of power in Constantinople presided over a labyrinth of alliances and rivalries. Some historians suggest that within the imperial court of Byzantium, certain advisors preserved the Egyptian tradition of harnessing spiritual energies, forging pacts with desert hermits who were rumored to practice an esoteric form of the old rites. Across the Mediterranean, meanwhile, the rising tide of Islam brought its own monotheistic worldview, reshaping the cultural landscape of Egypt and beyond. Yet the goddess's subtle influence did not vanish. Caravan routes crossing North Africa carried travelers into the heart of former Egyptian strongholds, where folk traditions mingled older beliefs with new ones. Manuscripts in hidden monasteries might have contained veiled references, for those who knew the code, to the continuing devotions of the cult of Isis. In these tumultuous centuries, the cult's leadership evolved into something less centralized, less dependent on physical temples, and more dependent on networks of trusted families and guardians. Scattered across territories claimed by shifting powers, these families are said to have passed knowledge and rituals along bloodlines, forging alliances that transcended political loyalties. By the dawn of the medieval era in Western Europe, power dynamics were governed by feudal lords, the emerging authority of the papacy, and the interplay of Christian monastic orders. Yet beneath this overt tapestry, certain esoteric groups flourished, weaving fragments of ancient lore into their secret philosophies. Some propose that the cult of Isis infiltrated or influenced certain Knights Templar enclaves, though evidence is elusive. Still, the notion persists in some medieval romances, where cryptic references to a Lady of the Tower or Queen of the Sea appear, conjuring images reminiscent of the Egyptian goddess's dominion. According to lore handed down through obscure manuscripts, Templar fleets might have harbored initiates well-versed in arcane knowledge gleaned from the East, forging a hidden link between medieval Christian militancy and an ancient Egyptian devotion. Whether these stories hold truth or are but the inventions of later mystics remains a matter of debate. Yet the enduring presence of Isis's name in certain cryptic texts of the period hints that her cult's influence persisted through corridors of power that seldom wrote their secrets into official annals. The Renaissance, marked by a rediscovery of classical wisdom, heralded a surge of interest in Hermetic texts and the lore of ancient Egypt. Wealthy patrons in Florence, Venice, and other Italian city-states financed explorations into older manuscripts, hoping to unlock the secrets of alchemy, astrology, and the cosmic order. It was in these courts that the imagery of Isis as a symbol of hidden wisdom bloomed once more, appearing in allegorical art and cryptic philosophical treatises. In certain noble circles, it was whispered that a handful of scholars had formed societies dedicated to the memory of Isis, claiming lineage from the priests who once served in her temples on the Nile. Though most historians view these claims as purely symbolic, a handful of diaries and letters mention closed-door ceremonies in which initiates invoked the mother goddess's name, seeking insight into the workings of nature and the mind. Out of this environment arose secret fraternities, each with its own rites and hierarchical structure. Rosicrucians, for instance, surfaced with manifestos promising hidden wisdom drawn from ancient sources. Some among them wore emblems hinting at Egyptian motifs, prompting speculation that their roots may lie in older cults, possibly descending from the mystical lineage of Isis herself. In any case, the Renaissance era effectively revived the goddess's image in Europe, giving her new life within esoteric currents that would feed into the broader tapestry of secret societies. As the age of discovery dawned and European ships ventured across the oceans, the ideological framework of the West began to shift dramatically. Empires rose and collided far from the Mediterranean world that had once cradled the worship of Isis. Still, the goddess's legacy traveled in unexpected ways, carried perhaps by explorers who collected Egyptian artifacts and returned with them to European courts, or by mystics who found resonance in the notion of a universal divine mother. In the swirl of new powers, Spain, England, France, the Holy Roman Empire, intricate webs of secret alliances formed. According to certain cryptic records, the cult of Isis saw opportunity in this grand age of exploration. It is said that they placed members in the retinues of influential nobles, guiding decisions behind the scenes, seeking to shape colonial policies in ways that would align with their hidden vision of global harmony or dominion, depending on the interpretation. Revolutionary ideas were taking root in the minds of philosophers and political thinkers across Europe, leading to seismic events that would forever alter the fate of nations. Here, too, rumors abound that the cult of Isis played a role, discreetly watering the seeds of revolution with the same vigilance that the goddess bestowed upon her followers in ancient times. The 18th century erupted with fervor for liberty and reason, culminating in the American and French revolutions, events that shook the established order of monarchies and aristocracies. Some conspiratorial whispers claim that prominent figures such as Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson might have been aware of or influenced by esoteric currents tracing back to the Egyptian mysteries. Though these claims are largely unsubstantiated, certain Masonic rituals do retain symbolic references that can be traced to older Hermetic and Egyptian traditions. Within the fervor of the French Revolution, as the monarchy toppled and new ideologies emerged, hidden societies flourished, many claiming partial inspiration from ancient Egyptian rites. Jacobin clubs and other political factions included members rumored to have a fascination with all things Egyptian, linking the perceived grandeur of the pharaonic era to the new vision of republican virtue. Meanwhile, the cult of Isis, or so the tale goes, found ways to harness the revolutionary spirit, nudging it to align with a grand plan that only the initiated could fully grasp. In the chaos, altars were desecrated and kings beheaded, and through it all, one imagines hooded figures meeting in candlelit chambers, chanting prayers that had not been heard aloud for centuries. With Napoleon Bonaparte's campaign in Egypt at the dawn of the 19th century, Europe's fascination with the land of the pharaohs reached a fever pitch. Soldiers and savants roamed the sands, sketching hieroglyphs, uncovering statues of long-forgotten gods, and filling journals with wonder at the sheer depth of ancient civilization. The decipherment of hieroglyphics added fire to the imaginations of those who believed in the existence of a hidden trove of Egyptian wisdom. In smoky salons and Masonic lodges across the continent, the name of Isis became a symbol of secret knowledge rediscovered. During this feverish quest to understand the ancients, certain clandestine groups claimed direct descent from the priests of old, describing lineages that span back to Cleopatra's court and beyond. To many rational observers, these claims seemed preposterous, the product of collective myth-making. Yet the persistent reappearance of Egyptian symbolism in high-level lodges and societies raises questions. While mainstream scholars work to catalog artifacts, decode texts, and place them in museums, one might guess that the cult of Isis looked on from the shadows, ever careful to guard the intangible core of their goddesses' mysteries from the prying eyes of the curious. The modern era, shaped by industrial revolutions, scientific breakthroughs, and global conflicts, saw power increasingly consolidated in nation-states rather than secret brotherhoods. Governments amassed technologies and bureaucracies that seemed to dwarf any ancient apparatus of intrigue. Nevertheless, in certain political upheavals, from the revolutions of mid-19th century Europe to the forging of new states in the early 20th century, conspiracists always found signs of a hidden hand steering events toward an arcane endgame. The cult of Isis, if it still endured, would have needed to adapt to a world governed by telegraphs, railroads, and factories, no longer reliant solely on messengers traveling desert roads by donkey or sailboats crossing the Mediterranean. Some stories assert that the cult had members in key intelligence services, using codes as old as the Ptolemies to pass messages in plain sight. Others suggest that certain banking families, who rose to prominence in the modern financial era, were quietly guided by the cult's precepts on wealth and power, gleaned from ancient understandings of cosmic equilibrium. Though no conclusive proof has ever been produced, the notion persists as a tantalizing possibility, fueling the imagination of novelists, filmmakers, and truth seekers. When the First World War ignited a conflagration that consumed entire nations, believers in secret conspiracies once more pointed to clandestine societies as puppet masters behind the throne. Yet the scale of devastation seemed beyond the capacity of any single group to orchestrate or control. The same could be said for the ideological battles of the 20th century that followed, culminating in a Cold War that divided the globe into rival blocs. And still, the scattered footprints of ISIS persisted, found in cryptic references in academic treatises, or in the personal libraries of those individuals said to dabble in occult philosophies. Some even tie the emergence of new spiritual movements in the latter half of the 20th century, movements that combine Eastern mysticism, neo-pagan reverence for the divine feminine, and revised interpretations of ancient Egyptian beliefs, to a subtle re-emergence of the cult of Isis. Perhaps these new sects were genuine inheritors of an unbroken chain of devotion, or perhaps they were imitators, enthralled by the romance of an ancient goddess whose mythic presence continued to captivate the Western consciousness. In the dawn of the digital age, speculation about secret societies has gained an even stronger platform. With each new rumor posted in some hidden corner of the online world, the possibility grows that the cult of Isis has not only survived but thrived, adapting to modern tools of communication and influence. Some digital sleuths claim to find encoded messages in the architecture of global institutions, from the layout of certain capitals to the icons hidden in corporate logos. Each clue becomes fodder for endless debate. Is this the genuine fingerprint of an ancient cult that shaped civilizations, or merely the imaginative leaps of those who long for a grand narrative behind the complexities of history? The cult of Isis, by its very nature, has never been one to broadcast its presence. If, after so many centuries, it yet endures, it would be only logical for its adepts to mask their activities behind corporate boards, philanthropic foundations, or cultural initiatives that celebrate the memory of ancient Egypt. Like a serpent shedding its skin, they might have abandoned the more conspicuous elements of the old rituals, retaining only the core tenets that elevate the goddess as the eternal mother and keeper of hidden wisdom. Now, standing at the threshold of the present day, we find ourselves gazing at a vast global stage, interconnected by technology, commerce, and instantaneous communication. Wars continue, alliances shift in the blink of an eye, and economic powers rise and fall much like the dynasties of old. In a world so seemingly rational, It is tempting to dismiss stories of ancient secret cults as remnants of an age when myth ruled over reason. Yet the fascination persists. The sense that behind the locked doors of world summits, or inside the private estates of magnates, lies an unbroken thread that began millennia ago, when priests of Isis whispered incantations by flickering candlelight beside the rush of the Nile. Some watchers claim that this unbroken thread stands behind significant global institutions, orchestrating events with patience and cunning, ensuring that the goddess's fundamental lessons of rebirth, unity, and cosmic law continue to shape human affairs in subtle ways. Others see only coincidences and conspiratorial fantasies. But as history has shown, legends often cloak kernels of truth. The cult of Isis was, at its inception, a vessel for a potent spiritual force worshipped by countless souls across the ancient world. Could such a vessel simply vanish? If it has not vanished, then it might yet be found merging with the chorus of New World orders, transcending both the left and the right of modern politics, and operating through the labyrinthine networks of finance and diplomacy that govern our planet. The apex of influence, in such a scenario, would not be an armed fortress, but rather a collective mindscape, shaping the beliefs and aspirations of societies to reflect some hidden mandate. The cult, if indeed it exists, might be less of a physical order and more of a subtle fraternity bound by ancestral knowledge, guiding certain world figures with cryptic counsel. They might see themselves as humble custodians of an ancient inheritance, waiting for humanity to be ready to embrace a higher order of truth. Or perhaps their ambitions are far less benign, seeking a form of power that was glimpsed in the first temple ceremonies of old, where the boundary between mortal and divine was said to dissolve. And so we draw near to the heart of this great enigma. The cult of Isis stands as both a historical reality, the widely documented worship of a goddess revered throughout the Mediterranean, and as a labyrinth of secret allegations that claim influence across centuries of revolution, alliances, and cultural shifts. In truth, the lines between the verified accounts and the whispered rumors blur with each retelling. Yet that very blur is what lends this story its epic character, for it invites us to venture beyond the comfortable boundaries of recorded fact into the realm of possibilities. It is in this realm that the imagination kindles and the sense of awe is born. We wonder what might lie behind the guarded doors of those who continue to invoke the goddess's name, whether in cryptic chants, financial dealings, political alliances, or arcane ceremonies that have long slipped from public memory. The rivers of history have carried forward the memory of this cult, from the gates of Alexandria to the cobblestones of Rome, from the cathedrals of medieval Europe to the newly laid streets of the modern age, and perhaps even into the digital tapestry that unites our global village today. Now, at the culmination of our cinematic journey, we must confront the final question. Does the cult of Isis abide still, orchestrating grand events that shape our destiny? Or has it dissolved into myths that serve merely as cautionary tales about the fragility of human institutions? In a sense, the answer may lie in our own minds, in our willingness to accept that history holds inexhaustible secrets. If the cult does remain, it no longer needs the open display of temple processions or gilded statues. It would require only the spark of devotion that travels invisibly between one initiate and the next, preserving an idea that transcends generations. Whether its ultimate purpose is to safeguard humankind from its own follies, or to guide the world toward a hidden empire of thought remains locked in speculation. Yet this much can be said. The cult of Isis, like the goddess herself, has proven astonishingly resilient across time. It has endured conquests and crusades, reformation and revolution, the fall of monarchs and the rise of republics, adapting its face to each new epoch. If indeed its adepts once prowled the marble halls of Rome, whispered counsel into the ears of queens and emperors, and conspired to propel the tides of revolution, then perhaps they are equally capable of maneuvering amidst the complexities of modern geopolitics. The goddess, revered as the guardian of life's fundamental mysteries, would remain a potent symbol for those who grasp the primal forces that govern the human spirit. Her mythology teaches that rebirth follows destruction, and that even the pieces of a fallen god can be reassembled to restore life. In a troubled world forever threatened by conflict and strife, there may be no more compelling allegory than that of Isis, seeking to unite the fragments of a fractured realm into a wholesome tapestry once again. And so we come to our epic conclusion, gazing from the vantage point of this new millennium back across the rolling centuries to a time when the Nile's fertile banks were the cradle of a civilization touched by the divine. The cult of Isis, if it taught anything, imparted the lesson that the divine feminine could be a wellspring of compassion and profound power. Perhaps that hidden knowledge still courses through the veins of our global society, waiting for the moment when we look beyond the illusions of separation and behold the common spirit that animates us all. If these ancient guardians of the goddess remain in the shadows, their final counsel to the modern world might be this: remember the sacredness that dwells in every life, the unbreakable bond that unites us, and the capacity for rebirth that emerges from the darkest hour. Like the goddess who gathered the severed limbs of Osiris, we too can restore what was broken, forging a future that honors our shared humanity. That legacy, secret or not, endures as a beacon of hope, an echo from epics long past that resonates still in the quiet corridors of our collective memory. In the end, whether the cult of Isis actively plots grand designs in the corridors of power or has faded into the echoes of history, one truth remains: the thirst for hidden knowledge is as ancient as civilization itself. Humanity has always yearned for greater meaning, seeking it in temples and books, or in the ephemeral hush of midnight rituals. This yearning gives rise to legends of secret orders, cunning conspiracies, and arcane rites that pierce the veil separating the mortal from the divine. It might be that the real secret behind the cult of Isis is not the manipulation of wars or dynasties, but the key to unlocking the inner transformation that leads us to see beyond the mundane. Perhaps that is the lasting gift of the goddess, to stir our imaginations, challenge our certainties, and invite us to stand in awe of a universe that remains larger than our understanding. Even now, if we listen closely in the silence of our hearts, we might hear the faint echo of prayers offered thousands of years ago, calling us to remember a truth older than any throne or empire. Let this be the ultimate message from that ancient society to us, the children of a restless modern world. Do not discount the power of mystery and reverence, for they bind us to the greatest story of all, the cosmic dance of life and death, hope and rebirth, that is never-ending. Isis, the eternal mother, the radiant queen of the mysteries, remains a symbol of what endures when civilizations rise and crumble. If her cult still breathes within the tapestry of secret councils, it is likely because the human spirit cannot deny its longing for transcendence. But whether that influence is real or only imagined, the lesson is the same. There is always more to see beyond the horizon of our doubts. There are always doors waiting to be opened, if only we have the courage to seek the key. And so, in the vastness of history's theater, the cult of Isis may well have played its part in shaping our world. Yet the final shape of destiny remains as elusive as smoke, contingent on the choices and visions of every generation that dares to believe. The truth lies behind hidden doors. In our quest to open them, we honor the very legacy they protect.